Joe Hobbs, I've been looking forward to this for a long time. Uh,
Nice.
good to have you on board, and you're welcome along. I know it's late at night in New Zealand, so I appreciate that. But even if we had started 10 or 15 minutes earlier this evening, you would have seen all the craziness going on in my house. So,
Yeah,
so,
all
so I
all good.
appreciate you staying up late to chat with us this evening. So look, we have a mutual friend, and his name is Nick Walker, and some people have already met him. Some of our listeners. And Nick encouraged me to go find you. So I did. I went
No,
stalking
no,
you
it's
on
his fault.
LinkedIn.
It's fault.
Yeah, it is. And I went stalking you on LinkedIn. And when I read your bio, I went, oh my God, we absolutely have to talk to Joe, because you've got a fascinating story from all the way from the British Army to traveling across the world or around the world on an old motorbike, two old motorbikes with your husband,
Mhm.
to a move to New Zealand, and now running a very successful plumbing and heating business in New Zealand. However, it is the burnout coaching, the let me see, the career and burnout coaching, which really sparked my interest.
Oh,
What's that all about?
it's kind of health coaching, but more around burnout, and it's trying to prevent people getting to the burnout stage. So, Mof Matt and I were running a successful plumbing business, down in Taihape. Um, I'd like to say Matt went through a burnout, but I think our whole family went through a burnout, if I'm totally honest with you. It wasn't just Matt. I was certainly about to burn out. And even our children were feeling the effects of mum and dad running a very busy small business. And so we ended up significantly downsizing the business. And during that time, I had the opportunity to um, just have some self reflection and do some extra training on something different. So I went through a coaching course and also was trying to find some ways to help Matt sort of get himself back together again. And so during that journey, I sort of did a lot of reading around burnout and what burnout is and how to prevent it happening in the first place. And from that, sort of put together a retreat package and sort of a coaching program to put people through. It's all about self-care, making sure we're looking after ourselves. So we keep on top of this fast-paced society that we live in. When you set up a business or you go into a new job, and everybody has this great intention that we're going to do well, and we're really energized when we first start these new projects, and we put everything into it. And because we so love our new passion, we start to put our self-care to one side. It might be, we miss the odd gym session, or we slip the family connections here and there, and it's okay for a little while. But then when those mount up and it becomes the norm that we've completely ditched the gym, or forgetting the birthdays and not attending the kids' things at school becomes the norm, that's when we start to slip into those issues. And it's just trying to catch it before that happens. So people have self care routines and they look after themselves. It becomes a priority before it sort of teeters off, and then they can't keep thriving and succeeding in what they're doing in their everyday lives.
Yeah. So, what is burnout? Is it a novel condition which has been spun up through the media in the last couple of decades, or has burnout always been around? And what are the classic signs of burnout?
Yeah, good question. Because I think it's different in so many different people, and it doesn't have to be. Um, it doesn't have to be that it's just a business orientated people. It could be that you're burnt out because you're caring for somebody. So a typical burnout would be, yes, you're tired, but that's certainly not it. People become irritated. They become, um, they lose their purpose. So they lose their self-worth. They don't feel like what they're doing has any meaning. They don't value their job anymore. They lose their confidence in what they're doing. They can have health problems. Um, So it's a whole array of problems, but it's not certainly not just tiredness. It's it's a whole more mental attitude towards a lack of purpose and just thorough displeasure in life in general.
Yeah.
They're just not fulfilled, overwhelmed.
Yeah, the symptoms sound a little like depression. Are the two closely related, or does one
It's
follow
really
the other,
similar.
or
I think the difference is if somebody is depressed, you're depressed no matter if so. So if you've got a burnout, you could if you're still in the same environment, you're going to feel those symptoms. Somebody with a burnout, you take them away, take them to a beautiful resort, a holiday for 3 weeks. They feel so much better away from their environment. You have somebody who's got severe depression and you take them away to a lovely resort holiday, they're still going to have those symptoms. And I think that's the main difference. So, yes, those symptoms do look very similar. And somebody suffering from a burnout often gets diagnosed and people say you need to go and see a doctor and they'll be put them on antidepressants when actually it's not depression. It's just they are burnt out and they need to reevaluate. They need to go back to look at all the self-help tools that they've got, look at who they are, reconnect with who they are as a person, find their why, and then go back to the very basics of getting some fulfillment in their life, and then sort of the little steps you go forward to stopping the burnout.
what are the classic early warning signs of burnout? And what does a very extreme case of burnout look like?
So a very early case of burnout would look like starting to get irritated by little things that you wouldn't normally get irritated by. Start to think that you don't really have any that you start to lose confidence in the work that you're doing. So you might feel like there's just no real what you're doing. Your job's got no real meaning. What's the purpose of this? I can't see why I'm doing this. And then it rolls into start lacking sleep. You don't sleep anymore. You can have start looking. People look for ways to numb themselves, whether that be alcohol or drugs. Eating the wrong kinds of food that they know they shouldn't be eating, but they do. It's obsessive. Um, and then the very, very worst case would be the just literally total breakdown and they'll take themselves to bed, or there'll be a medical condition which totally stops them in their tracks. And then that is it.
And at that point, are you saying that at that extreme level, are you suggesting that a retreat, 1, 2, 3, 4 week retreat, can actually completely cure it,
No.
or it just gets you back on the right track?
If somebody has got to that very worst case, it's going to take them a long time to get better. There's no point. We need to catch people long before they are at that phase. Going to a retreat is not going to help somebody who is at the final stages of a burnout. Unfortunately, they need proper medical care, and some people never recover from a full burnout. What the retreats are for to stop people getting to that full stage of burnout. So we try and get people they know that they could end up down that track. They know they've got a fast-paced job. They know that their self-care isn't maybe what it should be. They don't prioritize themselves. And so we have a retreat which has a personal trainer, we have a breath coach, we have a nutritionist, and we make sure we have that whole package put together so people can move forward knowing they're looking after themselves so they don't go down a burnout route.
It sounds wonderful, I have to say. Sounds great. Now, people differ. Some people will experience stress even in a so-called slow-paced job. Other people will experience stress and burnout in a fast-paced job. Are you seeing that burnout is more prevalent at the higher executive end of life, or does it happen equally
No,
across
it
all
happens
strata?
equally across because somebody could get burnt out because they don't feel like they're being supported properly in their role. So they're burnt out because because they just that they're overwhelmed by responsibility, and at the same time they've got all sorts of things going on at home. So it happens across the board. It doesn't. You see burnout all at all different aspects of society, and it doesn't have to just be in the business. A lot of carers, full-time carers, end up getting burnt out.
And this is not an advert for your business in any way, but if somebody was experiencing burnout symptoms, where do they start to look? I didn't even know that a career and burnout coach was a thing. So it's
Yeah.
obviously a thing, and it's obviously a growing thing, right?
It is, and there is lots of help out there. Um, with burnout, a lot of it is initially people lose who they are. So because you're on this wagon wheel of helping other people, so whether it be you're wrapped up in your business or your and staff and your family, so everybody else has got a little piece of you, and there's nothing left for yourself. And so the first thing for helping with burnout is to reconnect with yourself. And so just learning again who you are, who is Nikki Hughes. What do you actually believe in? What is important to you? What do you need in your life to make it fulfilled? And any life coach can help people come to that. There's so many self-help books can help you do that. There's lots of resources online. So it's that self-awareness is the absolute key to stopping burnout. And if you haven't got that self-awareness, oh, sorry, excuse me, you don't have that key self-awareness, you're never going to overcome those first stages of burnout. So you need to have a clear understanding of who you are, what you believe in, and what actually makes you tick. What do you enjoy in life? What do you want to achieve in life? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? How do you see yourself achieving those? Um, and what do you as could go wrong in between, and what are the barriers to get you there? But the most important thing is who are you as a person? And until you've got that really strong understanding, there's no point moving further forward. And so that's the key thing. Anybody who's feeling just overwhelmed with everything is once you understand yourself, you can then make decisions about moving forward. It's so much easier when you have to make a key decision, you can decide, does that sit well with me or not? Does that really fix with me? Does that feel good deep inside me? And if you don't know who you are, if you don't know what you believe in, then you can't make that decision.
Yeah. They say that the dissatisfaction with a boss or an immediate superior is the number one reason why people leave their place of work. It's nothing to do with the job per se. Is it has research shown that burnout is another significant cause of people
Oh,
leaving their jobs?
absolutely, absolutely, especially after COVID. Absolutely, yeah. After COVID, a lot of people were leaving because of burnout. There was so much change after COVID that people were just absolutely. They were overwhelmed by trying to keep up with all the different legislation coming through, and the labour market was a very difficult place to be working in because it was very competitive, and so people just couldn't handle it anymore.
Yeah, and what was it like for you when you had to face this in your own home? You mentioned that your husband was suffering from a case of burnout. So what was that like? A, how did you identify it? And B, what did you do?
I mean, it didn't happen overnight, and so I'd say it was a journey of a good maybe 2 years, if I'm really honest. Looking back, you didn't realize at the time. I mean, Matt is very conscientious and is extremely good at what he does. He was running a very successful business, and he always put customers and staff first. And so the initial signs were that he started things would annoy him. He could get irritated, totally isolated himself emotionally from myself and the girls. Um, and and he doubted his own ability, started to doubt his own ability, thought he couldn't, and which was so unlike him. He was always very confident, ex-army officer, very confident in what he could do until he was reaching those later stages of a burnout. Um, couldn't see the point of what the business was trying to achieve, or we were employing a numerous amount of people, but he couldn't even see what was the point in that. You know, there was just no point. There was no fun anymore. It was all very. Everything was serious. Everything had to have a purpose, but he couldn't see the purpose either. It didn't
Yeah,
sleep.
was there a point? Was there an event that led you to action?
Oh, he just took it. In the end, he had pretty much a big breakdown, and then that was it. So it just, yeah, that was kind of like, and he knew himself things had to change because otherwise he was going to be really sick, and so it was kind of like, yeah, time for a change, and so yeah, we made the
And
decision.
you took it upon yourself to go to seek remedy for him. Uh,
No,
did you decide to educate yourself? What was the process for you in this?
I educated myself. Matt did a lot for himself as well, so we overnight downsized the business, told staff that we're, downsizing, and found them all new employment. Um, and Matt just had to go slow for a good 6 months, 9 months. We were building a house up here in Coromandel, and he took a bigger role in that and just took himself away and had some slow time. But then that freed me up, and so that's when I had the chance to really think, what on earth is going on now? And I wasn't sure he would ever come right, to be honest with you, because he was a different person to the person, I'd certainly gone around the world with. And so it was, I had to sort of start, and that's when I really started looking into the burnout, thinking, is this recoverable? And, how do we come back from that?
What did you say, or what do you say to the people, in relation to your business? You said you downsized. What do you say to people who say, well, if you took the time to put proper systems and processes in place in order for the business to scale, you should be able to handle that without a greater level of stress. If you practice the art of delegation, well, then you should be able to offload some of that stress and responsibility to other people. You obviously looked at all of those things and you concluded that there was only one viable way forward.
Mhm. It
Is
would it
that
would
is
it
is
would
that
it
an
would be
accurate?
it would be great in an ideal world where, staff were on hand who knew your business inside out. We tried to. We were in a very small rural town of Taihape, which is central North Island, which is a very small isolated place.
Lovely
We
spot.
Yeah, it's a beautiful spot. Yeah, very, lots of farming community there. Um, but we were constantly trying to recruit, but the only recruitment we could get were apprentices, and that's basically how we built our staff up, was by apprentice tradespeople, which is great. But it's again hard on Matt because he was not only trying to run everything, he was training constantly as well. And so there we had no ops manager level. There was nobody sort of in the, which is what we desperately needed, and we were trying to recruit all the time for that ops manager position, but we just couldn't get anybody into the area to take that position up. And so it was just, yeah, there was a huge amount of pressure on Matt.
And after making the big change and after reassessing life and where you were both at, what was the period of recovery like and rehabilitation like for Matt and for the family? You said that this affected the whole family. Have you
Mhm.
come through that period of rehabilitation? Everything is back to square
Partial.
one, rosy in the garden now, or are there still challenges?
No, I'd say we're a lot stronger, so much stronger now than we were before. It's one of those things that I wouldn't want to go through it again, but we are stronger for having been through it. Um, the girls have been amazing. They went through some quite significant changes and challenges. They were just at a period where we were lucky we caught it early enough. They were at a period where they were both at boarding school, And, Matt and I were working some very big hours, and we dedicated ourselves completely to the business, and looking back, we really had. I don't think I particularly myself hadn't realized how much I'd put into the business. I knew Matt was boots and all. He was completely in from day one. That's all he was totally in the business. But I don't think I had realized how much I was in the business as well. I was there from early in the morning till late at night, and that's all Matt and I talked about all the time, was just what was happening in the business. And so the girls were kind of just doing their own thing, really, and they just got to that period in their life where they needed that security and that nest of a home, and we called it just in time. And so they actually came out of boarding school because we had that period where there wasn't much happening, really. Matt was up in Coromandel building a home. There wasn't much happening business-wise. And so the girls came out of boarding school. They still went to the same school, but they became day students. And we managed to reconnect. And it's been wonderful, actually. We've managed to reconnect as a family.
That's really nice. Yeah. Yeah. And is that the biggest positive spin-off of this experience, or are there any other obvious spin-offs that you've noticed?
I think the main thing for myself is I have learnt so much about myself. Um, I definitely had 100% lost who I was in the whole process. It wasn't just Matt having burnout. I had no idea what my beliefs were. I, one of the young apprentices said to me, and that's what sort of spurred me to really have a look at myself in the workshop one day. I think I was taking the mickey out of him. He had this horrendous music playing when he was cutting up scrap metal or something. And making a joke out of his music. And he turned around to me and sort of said, "Well, what sort of music do you like listening to?" And I actually had absolutely no idea. I didn't know how to reply to him because I couldn't remember the last time that I had listened to music for pleasure. And it sort of just dawned on me, and I think I gave some really stupid excuses. Like there's some, I don't know, probably said Robbie Williams or something like that, just something I could think of. And I went home and I thought, I need to start doing something for pleasure again, because I don't even know what I enjoy doing. Um, and so, yeah, so this whole thing has made me have a really good look at myself and find interests and hobbies, and learn more about myself once again. And it's been a really interesting and something that needed to happen. We're certainly down a path for having a fulfilled life again, and I don't think we were on that avenue before.
Do you think that the majority of the populace experiences this in some way, shape, or form through the natural evolution of life and raising a family? Do you think that your dissociation from yourself was more pronounced in your case than other people? Do you feel lucky that you were able to be aware of it and do something about it? So I guess what I'm asking is your experience a normal experience, or was there something extraordinary in there in your case?
I think I was extremely fortunate in that I had the time and the space to be able to have that reflection period. Um, and the coaching course that I went on was fantastic, and I certainly learned a lot through that whilst on that about myself. And your question about whether many people are in the same situation, I would say huge amounts of population are in that situation. There's so much responsibility on people these days. We have this ideal society that we all live in. Everybody, most people is two income families. You're running around to kids' activities. On top of that, everybody likes to have a nice home, so we've got to keep our homes up to scratch. It's just endless, all these different responsibilities that we enforce on ourselves. And it's like, where does it stop? And there's no time, it feels, for ourselves. And it can very easily become the priority, which has to be us to be able to keep up with everything. If we don't look after ourselves, it is all going to fall apart. I mean,
Yeah.
that is always going to happen. If we be able to give ourselves that priority as number one, you've got to have a plan in place to make that happen, and it's so easy to just lose sight and just
Mm.
be pulled in all directions.
Yeah, and what's the fix? I mean, I hear this a lot, but I don't hear too many fixes. Do you see your service as, to quote the old phrase, the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff when everything else has gone wrong, or do you see your service is prevention the fix here rather than?
Definitely prevention, because there is no Band-Aid. You can't, and there's no one fix, one way to fix all. Um, everybody is unique. There's like everybody should be doing some form of exercise every day, but what that exercise looks like is going to be different for me than it is for you. And the barriers that would prevent me from doing exercise are going to be completely different to what they're going to be for you. And everybody's different. And so, we should all be doing some kind of mindfulness, but mindfulness is not sitting in, some locust position looking out to sea. It's just taking 5 minutes in a day and just turning off the cell phone and just being aware of our surroundings. That could be while you're having a shower, if that's when you're going to be able to fit it in. Just having a moment of something that you do every single day fitting into your routine, but being aware that you're doing it, being aware of, the sounds and the smells and the feeling of things around you. Um, but it's just learning to be able to fit that into your day. That's the hard thing, but everybody is different. And so that's the trick, is just getting a plan and being organized to fit it into your everyday.
Yeah, you talked about finding joy again in the littlest of things. I know that in my own life, my day every day starts with that 20-minute cup of coffee.
Brilliant.
And that is me sitting at the kitchen table doing whatever, but that is 20 minutes of pure gold in my life. And I had to go seeking that, you know, in a strange type of way. And now that I have that, I'm able to start seeing joy and peace, and without getting too hippie about it, love in little things all through the day. So it's kind of having to condition your brain into looking for joy, isn't it? And do you have
Absolutely.
any specific examples that you can use?
That's exactly what it's like. It's just finding things that you do every single day, but but you need to become aware that you're doing them and you're actually enjoying them. So, like, for example, when you're having your cup of coffee, you need to be aware of the smell of the coffee beans, that how it feels as it's going down your throat. You know, what does the actual taste like? And just be very conscious that you are enjoying that moment. You can just sit outside, just take in the fresh air for 5 minutes, just sit outside doing nothing for 5 minutes and just try and what can you see? Five different things you can see. Four different things you can hear. These sort of just little exercises you can do can make such a big difference.
Yeah,
And
is there a cumulative effect then? Is there a cumulative
it
effect of all those little things leading to a happier, more fulfilled life? Is that right?
definitely cumulative. Yeah, definitely. It's just like
Yeah.
the interest on your bank account. It's if you just looked at one day, it doesn't seem very big, but cumulative over a period of time, huge difference.
And is your husband in a better, much better? You said he's in a much better place now. How's the business? Is the business less profitable, more profitable? Was there a case of and turnover is for vanity and profit margins are for
Yeah.
sanity? What way is the business now?
It's interesting actually, because we're sort of this will be our second year up in Coromandel. And when we first started up in Coromandel, we were absolutely hell bent, one man band only. Matt was going back on the tools. He hadn't been on the tools for a while. And but we've now just had one of our tradies from Taihape has come up to Coromandel and joined us here. And the business is growing pretty quickly. And so we are profitable, and but we're doing things very differently, and we're very aware we have to do things very differently. We're trying not to grow too quickly, and we make sure we have at least a day off every week, whereas before it was 7-day operation. Matt is very good in that he doesn't jump out of bed and, 5:30 and run out the door getting dressed. Um, he's like you. He has his cup of coffee in the morning. He sits, has a cup of coffee, and I know not to disturb him. Um, and yeah, life's just a bit steadier. It is, and it's good. It is really good. We between Matt and I, we definitely make more effort to connect and not talk about work all the time. Um, we certainly make more of an effort to have more family, with the girls. It's not just work, work, work. It's we're just very aware. We're very aware of life and that we've got to have more meaning to it.
Yeah. How do you fit your coaching business into this? Because you're involved in the business as well, full time.
Yeah.
Is the coaching full time as well, or is
No.
it as ad hoc?
Yeah, so the coaching is just part time. So I just sort of do online with a few clients, and we did one retreat last year, and we've just put the retreats on hold for now, but we might do one again later in the year.
And are you seeing the demand for your services grow, and you're having to resist allowing it to grow because you don't want to be overwhelmed again?
Yeah, I just for now I'm just letting it sort of um just sort of mingle in the background a little bit, just whilst we get the plumbing up and running, because I know we need to, both Matt and I need to be fully involved in the plumbing at the moment.
Yes.
Um, and make sure we get things right first time round with the plumbing when we set up here this time. Um, but I think maybe by the end of this year, the Reset Coach business will be back, and in terms of, I'll start getting back into the Reset coaching, but it would just be part time. It's just something I would do as an extra add on.
Yeah, yeah. You must know Matt, and Matt must know you like incredibly well at a cellular level, because you've spent a lot of years together, working together,
Mm.
traveling together, but you also worked together back in the British Army. How many
Mm.
years ago? And what was that experience like?
So we went through Sandhurst together, and so that was in '97. And then from
And
'97,
for those of us who are uninitiated, Sandhurst is the military training college
yes,
of the British Army.
officer
Officer
training
training of the British Army.
training
Okay.
of the British Army, yes. And so we then got posted in different locations, though, from Sandhurst. It wasn't until I latterly was posted to the paras where Matt was a para, and so I joined the para as an attached arm to the paras. Um, I joined his battalion, probably 5 years after Sandhurst,
So
and
you met each other at Sandhurst. Is that
yes,
right?
yes,
Yes. Okay. Okay.
yes.
And are you both from military families? My
No.
understanding is that children of officers attend military college quicker than
Yeah,
children of non-officers.
yeah. They probably make better officers.
Right.
No, I had no idea at all. My background was, I was sponsored by Sainsbury's, so my background was retail and
Okay.
more supermarkets, and so when I joined, I remember standing in the queue to do all your forms on the first day, and somebody said, "So what company are you?" Meaning, when you're in the military, you have groupings, and you're in the smallest group is your platoon. So, and then your platoon is part of a company. So you've got 3 platoons per company. And I just chirped up and I thought, well, that's a bizarre thing because I've left Sainsbury's. But so I put on the form Sainsbury's, but they meant my military blooming company. So I had absolutely no idea. And it went along because the whole military jargon for the first probably 6 months, it was like they were talking foreign language. I'd never even been camping when I'd been to Sandhurst. So it was
And
a
what on earth drove you to become a member of the forces?
Awesome. I'd done a lot of sport as a child, so I was very
Okay.
fit.
Yes.
And so, and I actually wanted to join the Royal Air Force.
Yeah.
And so I wanted something that was sort of fitness orientated. I did love the outdoors, but tried to join the Air Force, went through their officer selection and failed miserably at one of their aptitude sort of tests. And that was on their 4-day officer selection. And one of their officers came, I can't remember his rank now, but he was ever so lovely. And he pulled me to one side and he said, um, you've impressed us in some areas, he said, but this reasoning test is obviously quite concerning and you're not going to make it through, but you are ideal for the British Army. And I just thought, you are having a laugh, aren't you? That's the last thing I want to do. And he went, no, no, you would have a fantastic career in the British Army. Go away and think about it. And literally about 4 weeks later, I was at Sandhurst. So it was,
Wow.
and it went, I know it worked out really well because I loved it. It was best 10 years of my life actually. So it was,
Wow.
yeah, it was fantastic. I had a fantastic time in the British Army.
So you met Matt. You got
Yeah.
shunted off to the para regiment, or an associate of the para regiment. Where did he go?
So, well, he was in the Paras. So, Matt went straight from Sandhurst to the Paras. He was
Okay.
to para, whereas I was what they called adjutant general. So I was attached to various different units. So my first job was with the artillery, 3-2 artillery, and within their role, I did lots of different jobs for them. One of them was gun safety officer. So we did multiple rocket launch. It was a multiple rocket launch regiment, so big guns. And everywhere they went, I had to make sure they were firing the right direction, elevation was right, which is quite ironic because my navigation skills are absolutely terrible. But anyway, we didn't take out sortie planes, so I couldn't have done too bad a job. And yeah, we did all sorts for the artillery, and then from the artillery I went to, where did I go from there, to a army recruit center, so trained recruits, and that was a lot of fun. And then from there I then went into the Paras. So yeah, so that's sort of, and then yeah.
And what did you notice about yourself? You said that it was the most enjoyable 10 years of your life. What did you notice about yourself in those first couple of years in the army that gave you so much enjoyment?
The army's just great. You meet so many different walks of life. So you can be literally working next to a member who has got connections with the royal family, and then literally within seconds you're with somebody who's had the option of either prison, juvenile detention center, or join the army. And you're all just there doing the same job, and everybody has a really wicked sense of humor. Everybody just gets the job done. Um, and you have a lot of fun. There's a lot of fun. Work hard, play hard. I think that's kind of how to put it with the army.
So was it Prince
Um,
William or Prince Harry that you worked with?
and no, neither. They're too young for me, unfortunately. They
Okay.
were, yeah, unfortunately. But yeah, they were, yeah. But there's some you just meet some very cool people, and everybody is kind of has a lot of respect for each other, regardless. I know they have a rank system in the army and all the forces, but it's still mutual respect up and down the chain.
Yeah.
It's a very neat environment to work in.
Got an unusual question about the army.
Hmm.
If I was to ask you what is the purpose of the army now, obviously there's an obvious purpose of defense. Is defense the number one purpose of the army, or are there different reasons for it being there in your mind?
I think there are lots of different purposes of the army. A lot of it, I think, is giving people security just mentally within a country as well. It's knowing that you're safeguarded. Um, it's that humanitarian. It's giving aid. Um, there's so many different forms of having an army.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of history with the British Army, and that certainly has a role to play in the UK. Um, I mean, security is definitely its number one role, and it always and it always will be, and so it should be. but it has a lot of other roles as well.
Do you think that the world is becoming more militarized or less militarized in recent years?
I think it is becoming more militarized, and I think it will become more militarized. It's a pretty fragile world we live in at the moment. So it's, yeah, it's just going to
Is that
go
is that a good
more.
is that a good thing or not? I mean, is it? It's not a good thing, obviously, that the world is becoming a more fragile place. But is there a bigger place? Is there a bigger role in society for military and the armies these days and going forward than there has been in the past?
Yeah, I mean, I feel very comfortable with it because I under I understand and I've lived that life. Um, I guess if you haven't lived that life, you might feel differently. Um, I personally feel more comfortable having a strong military presence. You know, if in New Zealand we don't have much of a military, and there's talk of increasing the military budget over here, and it's like, oh yes, please. But I know a lot of people think, oh, what's the point? We live so far away, and it's somebody else will come to our rescue, and it's uh, yeah, I'd much rather have a strong military presence.
Yeah, yeah, okay. You served in Northern Ireland. Was Matt
Hmm.
also in Northern Ireland? And
Yeah,
what was that
Matt,
experience like?
Matt's done a lot more time in Northern Ireland than I have. Um, yeah, Northern Ireland's different. I'll be careful what I say because you've got a lovely Irish accent there. Um,
Huh? Hello?
no, I mean, I love Ireland. Ireland is so beautiful, and we get to see so little of it when we're serving. We were positioned in the towers, but we were there at an interesting time. They were taking towers down, and
Yeah.
so it was an observation um, sort of time when we were there watching.
So we're talking the noughties, is that right? In
Yes,
the early part of this century, yeah. Okay.
on the high and those sort of play, yeah. So yeah, it was interesting times. Um, You get to spend a lot of time in helicopters because it's, a lot of helicopters in and out of places. It's one of those tours when you do Northern Ireland where you're very confined because we were based in a place called Besbrook Mill, and you can't just go for a wander down the street. It's, you are confined to, I guess, barracks, I guess, but it's, this tiny place called Besbrook Mill. Um, if you want to go for a run, you literally run around the perimeter fence, which is, a few hundred meters, just a big, big wall. So it is like being in jail. Um, but yeah, but it's interesting. It's interesting. It was interesting times.
Is it, did you have a chance to spend much time in the Republic of Ireland? Is it a
No.
place that you'd like to explore a little bit more? Would you feel comfortable about coming to Republic of Ireland? Would you feel comfortable about going back to Northern Ireland?
A republic I would love to go to, but perhaps wouldn't feel comfortable. It's, as British Army officers, it's one place we're sort of not supposed to go to. And so, yeah, perhaps would have to be very careful, especially Matt being a para. Um, and Northern Ireland, I mean, we've perhaps seen there's other places in the world that we would perhaps go to now. We've seen a fair bit of Ireland.
Yeah, yeah. It didn't stop you to having wanderlust and taking off to other far-flung places. What a story's coming up next. Tell us about your intrepid travels.
I think we'd both decided we were going to leave the army, but we had no idea what we were going to do. It's typical, military story where you knew that the military wasn't going to be a forever, but didn't know what the next step was going to be. So hell, let's just go traveling. And so I think as well, we were in Ireland. It was while we were in Northern Ireland. We had watched on, I think it was the Men and Motors channel, some a group of guys who done this almost an amateur video of them on some motorbikes going across parts of Soviet Russia. Um, on these bikes, and we were like, "That sounds like a really cool thing to go and do." And so we were like, "Well, let's go traveling. Let's go and do it on motorbikes." The only problem was I couldn't ride a motorbike. But it was like yes, I was like, "Oh, okay, well, I better learn." And so I took a test in Northern Ireland because in Northern Ireland, it had this loophole where you could take your test on any size bike you wanted to, and you got a license for a bigger bike. It's like, "Oh,
Ah,
that's great."
yes.
Um, so naive. I mean, it was just ridiculous. I mean, it summed me up really in those years. And so I was like, "Ah, great," because we wanted to have these 650s because of, so we could cover any sort of terrain. And like, "Oh, that's cool." So I took the test. I think it was a 150 or a 200, and easy peasy, did that, and then got back to the mainland, and Matt found these 2 DR650s. One was electric start, one was a kickstart because I said I didn't want to have a kickstart, and thought, what could possibly go wrong? Went into London, pick up these bikes, and when I was test driving the bike, I fell off it, funnily enough, because I couldn't flipping ride it. So that was a
Yeah.
done deal. We had to buy the bikes, and, so brought them back, and then off we went. And I remember first we went, Dover-Calais ferry to for the first leg, and I had no idea. I mean, the bikes were not even I mean, I could literally get my big toenails on the floor. I couldn't touch the ground
Yeah.
on my bike. It was too big for me. And they were fully loaded. We had spare wheels, we had jerry cans of fuel, water, all sorts attached to these bikes. So they were heavy and big. And got
I
to the
just
first
if I may just go back to one point that you made just before your story of the motorbikes. You said that we both realized that the army wasn't going to be forever.
no.
What did you mean by that? I thought that when you're in the army, it's a full career. There's almost an assumption. I just want to go back to one point that you made.
Yeah.
You said that you both realized that the army wasn't for you forever.
No.
And my assumption was that, or is that, once you're in the army, you're in the army for life. Obviously, that's not the case. Why was the army not forever for you?
Um, we both were having a great time, and, we had no gripes with the army at all. For me personally, it was that I wanted to have a family at some stage, not imminently, but I knew I wanted to have children. And both Matt and I deployed a lot. We just ended up in roles which were always deploying. And we had friends who were, husband and wife were both in the forces, and I'd see children get palmed off to grandparents, and then they'd return from operations, and kids wouldn't recognise parents, and you just think, it's just not how I saw us having a family. And so for me, if I wanted to have a family at some stage, and being in the army and a family didn't fit for me. And for Matt, um, the career progression for him was going to what they call a staff job. So it was away from the battalion, doing the soldiering, which is what he loved, being at a desk and doing policy, which actually he's very good at that sort of admin sort of role, but he didn't want to do it at that stage. And so he was like, well, if that's what my next stage is, I'd rather do something different. So yeah, it was just a logical step to find something outside the military.
Okay. And the 2 motorbikes that you purchased in London,
Mm,
had they just returned from a round the world trip themselves? Or were they properly set up touring motorcycles, or did you have to buy
no.
them as like a skeleton and then you build it up?
Yeah, no, they were just regular, like, old farm bikes, and then, Matt made some, like they were old, I think, old ammo boxes that you put on the side of them, and, then we had some, old army, like, what do you call them, like, bags on the side, which we made around the tank bags, and yeah,
Yeah.
we just yeah, made them up to be travelling bikes.
Wow. And how long did it take you to get used to riding?
I don't think I ever really did. I fell off a lot, um, but I probably stopped falling off at every corner, after probably about a month,
Okay.
getting on and off the ferry was pretty stressful. I remember that David Calais thinking, "Oh my god." Um, but, yeah, once we'd actually got through Eastern Europe, then I kind of learnt very good on clutch control. I could keep the bike upright just using the clutch, which was handy.
Yeah, okay, okay. You've just reminded me of myself and my great friend Niall, who we took off in our camper van and we went from Belfast to over to Scotland, and we were so experienced that we spent the first 2 days of our trip in a garage getting the old camper van, the combi, fixed. So we used to wake up in the garage in the morning time because we'd sleep in the camper van, and we'd wake up to the mechanics coming into work the next morning, and we'd be frying up our sausages. And so naive is just was not the words,
Yeah,
it was incredibly. But
yeah.
yeah,
We
so off you went around Europe, and any major highlights there?
Well, we kind of went through Europe as quickly as possible, and we just went through Eastern Europe because we were on a shoestring budget, to say the least, and so, and we left when it was winter, and so Europe was camping, and rough camping. So we just got through Europe ASAP and headed across to, got down to Turkey as quickly as we could. And that's kind of where the fun really started once we got into Turkey.
Yeah,
Um,
what just remind me, what year was this?
this would have been 2004, I think we set off.
Okay, okay, yeah, we
Yeah.
we we were 2 years ahead of you, so
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Oh,
Great.
sorry, what am I talking about? No, I apologize. We went in '92, not
Did
2002.
you?
Yeah,
Okay.
to 1992, yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah, so you had some fun in the Middle East. Is just amazing traveling, isn't it?
Oh, amazing. Yeah. So we went from all through Turkey and then into Georgia and then all through Central Asia, that was a real adventure through the stands,
Yeah,
Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, all those sort of countries. Yeah, amazing. Yeah,
yeah,
amazing.
they've changed a lot since then, so were there any major highlights going through the stands?
I mean, it was challenging. We got on this cargo ship uh, up to well, we thought we were going to be going to the middle part of Kazakhstan, across it's the Caspian Sea, isn't it? Across to Kazakhstan, but it hadn't. It had dropped us off much higher up to the top. And so we had no map, but obviously we had no smartphones or GPS or anything like that. And so we hadn't got a map for the top part, and there were actually no roads either where they dropped us off. And so all we could do was follow. We were all in the desert, and we could just follow this. We saw a railway line, so we just followed this railway line down, knowing that it must be going to some town somewhere. And we were following this for, it must have been about 2 weeks. And so we were just living off whatever we could get. We'd go to the nodding donkeys for fuel. Um, but it was, I'd be falling off the bike every flipping couple of hours because we were in sand, and I'd be diving into the sand and waiting for Matt to realize I was no longer following him. So we'd have to get the bike off me because it was too heavy for me to lift off myself. But it was really great times. It was pure adventure, and it was fabulous. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was one of the highlights. It was great. It was
Was
really
there was there any point in that first month or two when you were falling off the bike that you thought, "Holy shit, I really need to be sitting behind Matt," or were you determined to go your own route and ride your own bike?
um, I think there was a couple of times where I wasn't sure I was gonna come out alive because, I remember thinking, well, one time I came off and there was a bloody snake, and I'm not a great lover of snakes. And there was this snake. I came off and this snake was just sitting there looking at me, and I was thinking, "That actually doesn't look like a very nice snake." And I thought, if it actually bites me, we have no way of getting any help here. And I think that's when I sort of dawned on me that we are doing something really quite stupid here. It's like
Yeah,
we really are putting ourselves in a very vulnerable position here. Um, but I don't know if we'd have lasted with Matt and I on one bike. Actually, I think we'd have fallen out big time if I was a pillion. It would have just been too close proximity for 2 years. Um,
yeah,
so we needed that little bit of space just to see things for ourselves. Um,
right.
The ironic thing was with the Kazakhstan thing was we'd gone through for 2 years, 2 years, 2 weeks, just living off the land, and, it was just getting what we could. And after having 2 weeks, we hadn't spent any money, so I said, "Right, okay, when we arrive in whatever," I can't remember what the city was there, it was a big city in Kazakhstan, and it actually had hotels, like nice five-star hotels. I said, "Right, we are going to a five-star hotel when we get there." And so we got to this beautiful hotel, and, got this gorgeous room, totally blew the budget. It was like a whole month's worth of budget
Yeah.
on one night's accommodation. We had dinner, and I had the worst food poisoning you could
Ah, no.
imagine, just from one meal. And it was just like, you live off the land and really rough it, and we were sweet as, and then you go to a nice, beautiful five-star hotel, and, I mean, all I could do was lie on the bathroom floor, and it was just because it was,
Oh, man.
it was just gross.
Yeah. Do you think there was an element that your system wasn't used to eating rich food, and it was probably taken by surprise almost, or was it genuinely bad food? I mean,
It
did
was
Matt
bad
get
food poisoning, and so
yeah,
we got the
well,
doctor in, and they said it was, well, they washed the tomatoes in, tap water, because they said, "What did
yeah,
you eat?" And I said, "Oh, reeled off what I eat," and they were, "Oh, tomatoes." It was, washed in tap water. And they were like, "I'll have
yeah,
you one of this." So, yeah.
okay,
So
well,
lesson learned. Stay
yeah,
away
yeah,
from
yeah.
coffee
So
towels.
off you went out of the five-star hotel. What was the next
Yeah.
stop?
So where did we go? Kazakhstan. So we followed it down. Spent a lot of time in Uzbekistan because we were trying to get into Pakistan, but we couldn't because there's that little tiny bit of Afghanistan which got us stuck because we were traveling on British passports, and the Iranians didn't like the British passport. If we'd have had our nice Kiwi passports, we'd have been fine, but we couldn't get into Iran with the British passport. And so, ended up in Uzbekistan for a little while we we're trying to sort that out, but ended up having to fly with the bikes from, Tashkent over to Pakistan, and
Okay,
then, picked up again in Pakistan, did a lot in northern Pakistan, and then India, Nepal, some treks in Nepal, back into India, followed India right the way down to Kerala, which was beautiful down in Kerala.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then, from India, we then shipped across to, Southeast Asia. Spent a lot of time around Southeast Asia, the whole region around there. And then into Australia, um, spent probably 6 months in Australia. And
yeah.
then whilst we were in Australia, I fell pregnant with Poppy, who's our eldest daughter. And
Okay,
it was a quick nip over to New Zealand, fell in love with New Zealand, and, New Zealand over to America, stayed with a really good friend in America, and then through Central America and arrived back home 6 months pregnant.
so did you have the bikes with you in America also, or did you
Yeah,
ditch them in oh, you did? Okay, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So
yeah.
a quick flit through America down into Central America and South
Yeah, all
America?
through
Yeah,
just into through Central America, and then we
yeah,
shipped home from Panama.
yeah. So, did you go on the ship with the bikes?
No, no, so
Okay,
we flew, and, no, Venezuela. Yeah, Venezuela was where we flew home from. So, and the bikes went on a boat.
on a boat, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
In my case, the trip that we made in 1992 was absolutely life-changing. Is it life-defining? I don't know, haven't quite worked that one out yet. In your case, was it a life-defining trip? And how did it affect the way that you see the world and the way you live your life?
Um, I think it opened my eyes to the world is a very big place. There's so much out there. It's a big place out there, and we're a very, very small part of it. And it made me really value diversity. It's there's so just the amount of culture, and when you are in the middle of India and Pakistan, all those different places where there's so much going on, the different colors and the smells, and people do things in so many different ways than what we do to our normal, how we perceive as being the right way of doing things. But everything still functions really. It might be slightly different, and it just made us aware that when we blend it all together, we can actually achieve really cool stuff, you know? So it's made me really appreciate diversity, actually, whereas I think coming from a military background, I was quite channeled into, "This is the way we need to do things, and this is the only way." So yeah, it definitely opened up my mind.
And
Um,
is it diversity in every form that you respect? Is it
I
religious, cultural,
absolutely,
ethnicity, everything?
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Has it
Yeah.
turned you into like a rampant lefty, or do you
No.
still right, okay,
Yeah, no, definitely not. Definitely
okay,
not. I still know what I prefer, and um, but I just respect that other people have a different way of doing things sometimes, and yeah, and that's cool. And when we can bring all those different ideas and different people's values together, we can we can do good. You know, we can build stronger. You know, with a
yeah.
united force.
However, I'm hearing that there has to be structure and strategy behind that to make it
Yeah,
work, right?
yeah,
Yes,
absolutely, absolutely.
okay. Is that something that you bring into your work life now? Is that the same kind of philosophy?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So proper systems, structures,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
but let people go and enjoy their day at the same time, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, we have a certain way that everything has to be done, and to some people, it might seem quite rigid. Um, but, you know, that we realize there's other ways of doing things, and we're open to ideas. It's not just, "This is the only way it has to be done." You know, if somebody comes up and says, "Oh, have you tried this?" And we'll certainly listen, and, you know, we'll really look at another way of doing things.
Yeah. Have your travels do you still have the travel lust, the wanderlust, and have your travels made it difficult for you to stay in the one place for a very long time? And by that, I mean more in your head than physically. I mean, are you always striving to go to the next place? Are you always on the lookout for the next shiny country to go visit? Or are you more settled now in your outlook?
Yeah, I think it's the latter. I think, I I appreciate now being quite settled. Because we travelled for quite a long time, and, I think by the time we got back from our travels, I needed to be home, and so, or just in, not so much home, but I needed to be in one place. I needed to stop living out of a bag. I needed to have a proper bed with a proper pillow, and just actually have a reasonable, you know, I don't know, I just needed to know I was going to still be there in 3 nights' time. Um, and so now I thoroughly appreciate having a nice home, and just having a sense of calmness around our normal everyday living. And
Yeah, so
so,
you're done. I mean, do you ever
yeah.
see a point in the future where yourself and Matt might buy a camper van and off you go again when the
Oh,
kids are
definitely. Yeah,
grown up
definitely.
and have their own families,
Absolutely.
yeah?
Definitely.
Okay.
Got
It
that
hasn't
shorter
put you
period.
off the idea.
No, 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 my gosh, no, no, no. We've definitely still got the travel bug, but it would be for a shorter period of time. You know, I could see us doing like a 3 month, 4 month trip, not 2 years again, you know, a
Yeah.
shorter period of time. And there's so much out there we didn't get a chance to even have a sniff at, you know, there's so much to explore.
Okay. How did you end up back in New Zealand then?
So, well, whilst we certainly went traveling with our eyes open, knowing that we perhaps wouldn't live in the UK forever. And so when we were traveling, we kept our eyes open, and both loved New Zealand. Um, but when we got back from traveling, like I said, I was pregnant with Poppy, and we were absolutely flat broke. And so we spent everything we had on our travels. And so, it was just easy, to be honest with you, for us to go back into the British military, because you get accommodation,
Okay.
you know, pay and everything. So,
So you had
I
taken leave of absence then?
no, we'd actually both resigned. We'd both
Oh,
we'd fully left, but then, so that's a long story. But I ended up signing back up and Matt became a full-time dad looking after Poppy. And so, but then during that time when Matt was looking after Poppy, somebody who we met while we were traveling got in contact and said, have you thought about New Zealand Army? And we're thinking about doing this and that with the, New Zealand forces. Are you into it? And we're like, hell yeah. And so we were in New Zealand, got visas, and there we are over in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And I was
Your
then
families at this point
releasing.
must Yeah, your families at this point, your respective families must be just going, "Okay, these guys are off their rocker. They're gone again, back again, gone again." So, was this it? Were you ostracized from the community, from the family after this, were you?
I know they coped really well, actually. I mean, my poor parents. We didn't really give it much thought at the time. If I'm absolutely brutally honest, we'd gone around the world, which my mum especially must have been worried sick. We didn't even tell when I fell pregnant. We didn't dare tell anybody that I was pregnant on a bike, because that would have been, you are coming
Yeah,
home. So we just didn't tell them. We did some very discreet photographs from then on. A biking jacket suddenly went back on, and it was kind of to one side, so nobody could see the bump over a jacket. People were probably wondering why on Joe's suddenly wearing a biking jacket again, because before it was flip flops and t-shirts all the time.
yeah,
Um, and so they kind of just got over the fact that we'd been away traveling on these motorbikes, and they'd had no contact. We'd gone through the tsunami and everything while we were away, and so they'd gone through all that, and then just got back into normality, they thought, and voila, we're going to emigrate to New Zealand.
yeah,
And I mean, my dad was like, don't expect anything else.
yeah,
Knew there'd be another one coming somewhere, another bombshell. But my mum was pretty distraught. But yeah, they're
yeah.
okay. They're okay.
Good, good, good. They can see that you're in a probably the most amazing country in the world, in my view, and they've obviously been out to visit a number of
Yeah,
times,
they
have they?
have. Yeah, they have.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
great.
Dad can certainly see it.
Yeah. So the New Zealand Army, you mentioned that you'd like to see some extra investment and maybe a growth in the New Zealand Army, but it's a little bit like the Irish Army. It's there. It's almost like a token force, isn't it?
Mhm.
That doesn't
Totally.
receive very much investment at all, and there's not a lot of focus on the army. What was that like? Because you'd gone from one of the most supported armies in the world to one of the least supported armies in the world. What was that like?
Yeah, I wasn't working in the New Zealand Army. Matt was, but I know he found it quite frustrating. Um, and when we first came across, it was going to be. He came across with all the intentions that he was going to have a full career over in the New Zealand Army, but it was quite obvious, very within about a year, that it wasn't going to be for him. It might have been a little bit of an element of, when you do something second time round, it's never quite the same. And so, we'd both had a great career in the British Army. You both left, and then you go back and do it again, and it's kind of like, the same mates aren't here, and it's not quite the same. So there was a little bit of an element of that going on, but yeah, it was kind of like, this isn't really what I'm this isn't the army that I'm up for. And so, yeah,
Yeah,
it was kind of like, yeah, I think this isn't for me. Need to do something completely different. So
yeah,
then it was time to have a total career change.
yeah. To plumbing.
Plumbing. Yeah, plumbing.
Okay, okay. So help me here, help me here, right? So you did mention that Matt was really enjoyed field work in the army and so on.
Mhm.
Was he a plumber in the army? Were you a plumber in
No,
the
no.
army?
No, no,
And,
no,
and
we
how
can't
on
do
earth
trades.
did you
No, you
learn?
don't do trades in the British Army. Um, Matt's always loved um, doing things with hands. Has always been very good at, very practical person, but never been trained in anything, or hadn't been trained in anything like that. Um, but when we had this old homestead, like a whole old villa in Taihape, and when we were in the army, coming out of the army, oh no, we were still in the army, and bought this old house thought, right, okay, I need to renovate it. So, it's a little bit more English style, and put an ensuite bathroom on, had a re-roof, just made it, a little bit more comfortable. And it was the plumber who pretty much did all the work to it. And we went through the bill, and I was like, poof, some money to be made in plumbing. And so, yeah, so we were like, and I said to Matt, well, if you want to do a trade, have you thought about plumbing? And he was like, well, yeah, I could be a plumber. And so, yeah, here we are. We're plumbing.
So what, did he go and do an apprenticeship, or did he just get stuck in? He did an
An
apprenticeship
apprenticeship in Tai Happy. Yeah.
while he was in the army or after he
No, no, no. He had to leave. He had to leave the army, and he did
Okay,
an apprenticeship. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And here you are.
Here we are. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, what a story. And how many years ago did you set up the plumbing business?
So Matt Hobbs Plumbing was 2015. Yeah, 10 years
Yeah,
ago.
okay.
Gosh, 10
10
years ago.
years. Yeah,
Yeah.
wow.
We celebrate that this year, don't we?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, yeah. By doing a podcast show, that's very impressive.
There we go. Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
What is the postscript to this story? So if we're having a conversation in 5 years' time or in 10 years' time, when your plumbing business is 20 years around, will there still be a plumbing business? Will there be a coaching business? Will you still be in New Zealand? What's the postscript?
Gosh, who knows with us? Definitely we will still be in New Zealand. I'd say that's an absolute definite.
Great.
New Zealand is very much home for us. I cannot picture us anywhere else. Um, Plumbing business, I would say yes, at least for another 10 years. Because we both do love the business. Um, the size of the business, I can't tell you whether we keep just, it's 3 of us now, which is a nice size. It works well at the moment. Um, there's definitely a lot of room for us to grow, but whether we want it to, I don't know. Um, so yeah, I don't know. Um, but yeah, I think we will be plumbing in 10 years' time.
Yeah,
Um, and the coaching, I think the coaching I'll just let it evolve itself. It's something I'm very passionate about. I love the coaching. And I know there is a need out there. The way we all live our lives, and just just the speed that the society works at. It's just one of those things. It's just needed. It's just needed out there. And when people reach a full burnout, it's not nice. And if we can catch people before that happens, that's what we need to be doing.
yeah, yeah. In a sense, your coaching business is almost, this is a terrible segue, but your coaching business is almost fixing the plumbing in here in the brain, really, isn't it? So
Yeah,
you're a fixer, and
yeah,
it seems that
yeah.
you get a lot of satisfaction from that. What kind of life would you like to see your two girls living? Is the world their oyster, and do you want them to go exploring the same as you did, or would you prefer them to have a more um, domiciled existence?
Oh, I think whatever they choose to do, it's got to be, you know, they're their own people. You know, both our girls are quite different individuals. They get on extremely well, and that's because they are quite different. I can see both of them doing some degree of traveling. The youngest one is definitely will travel. She's already, itching to go now. She went and did a Vietnamese trip she did a service trip last December. Absolutely loved it and got the travel bug last year. So in her head, she's already gone. She's traveling already. She's gone. She's planning already. So Lucy
Yeah,
will be. Um, Pops is perhaps a little bit more career orientated. Yeah, who knows? But you just want your kids to be happy, don't you, and have a fulfilled life. So as long as they choose their own destiny, then that's all I can wish for them.
yeah. And you don't want them, or you don't wish for them to be in a certain career lane, do you?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. But nothing is forever anymore, is it? They can chop and change. They can do something for a little bit and then move on, do something else when it's time for them to change.
Yeah.
It's Yeah.
Has that philosophy changed? You know, if you go back to your pre-travel days when you're in the army, would you
Mm.
have said the same thing, or would you have said, if you had had daughters at that time, would you have preferred for them to have a more regimented existence?
I think it has changed, definitely has changed. I think it's changed for guys as well as girls. It's expected now that people do have 2 or 3 different careers, whereas before, people might have had a couple of different career changes, whereas now, it's, that's unheard of. It's people will change numerous times throughout their lifetime.
Joe, I've learned a lot this morning in our discussion, or tonight in your case, and it's been really, really interesting. I've learned about how okay it is to change career, how okay it is to keep chasing your dreams, how okay it is to be respectful of diversity in whatever shape or form that comes in the world. I'm interested to know, what have we not discussed? Is there anything that we should be talking about this morning that we're not talking, that we haven't talked about?
Gosh, that's a good question. Um, ooh, um,
Or let me perhaps rephrase and ask you, not that you have to have a message, but if you did have a message that you wanted to hand down through the generations, or to get out there into the world, what would your key message be?
I think key message should be that everybody has to learn to prioritize themselves, and that unless we learn to look after ourselves, we can't look after anybody else. And the sooner we all actually realize that and put that into practice, um, the sooner we can start being effective. It's too easy just to get on that hamster wheel of just the daily grind. But until we actually take an effort to do some self-care and look after ourselves, then we're just not going to reach our full potential.
And again, this is not an advert for your business, but if somebody did want to get in touch with you, from a coaching perspective, how would they do that?
Email's the best way. So just
Yep.
Jo at theresetcoach.co.nz.
Just repeat that for me. The what?
Joe
The
at Joe at the reset coach
the
dot
reset coach. Okay, I
yeah,
didn't pick that up first. Okay,
yeah,
Joe at the reset
show
dot co
co.nz.
dot nz. Okay, brilliant. Well, Joe Hobbs, it's been a real pleasure. I've so enjoyed talking to you this morning. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm really fascinated about the reset and the burnout coaching that you talked about. I think it's a much needed service, and I think it's a much misunderstood topic. So you've helped to bring light to that this morning, and for people listening, I think the most important message that I picked up was that you're not alone. If you are feeling those symptoms, and if you do suspect that there's something not quite right in your current realm, well, then it's probably true. There probably is something not quite right, and you're not on your own. And there is help out there if you're keen to go after it. And I think that's a very important subject, and a very important message. So, and very apt for today's world. So I want to say thank you very much for joining us, and I wish you well, and hopefully, as I always say, I hope we can pick this up again sometime in the not too distant future.
Thanks so much, Nikki. Love chatting with you.